All right, we're getting everyone logging in here this afternoon. Welcome everybody to the 2020 Virtual Regional Parent Summit brought to you by San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. I have the honor of being your host today here at this site today, and we're going to have some fun enjoying the time with our keynote speaker today who's in the house, Dr. Sergio Chavez. But before we do that, I want to make sure that we have some housekeeping that goes on. And so I want to make sure that I can share my screen here one more time and get this PowerPoint going. All right, it should be popping up. Gotta love technology. There it goes. And hit share, and hopefully everybody can see it. Give me a thumbs up, Marisa, if I'm doing anything wrong there. All right, we could see it. That's awesome. So again, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here today. This is day 2 of our virtual parent summit. Yesterday we had a dynamic keynote speaker by the name of Daniel Walker, which you could go to our website, and I'll show you the link later on today to be able to view his keynote from yesterday. And as I said earlier, today we have Dr. Sergio Chavez, who I'll introduce in a little bit, but I want to make sure I get through some important announcements before we do that. So first of all, I do want to remind everybody that we are recording this session. And so the reason for the recording is to allow us to be able to post this at a later date. Usually it's the day after, like tomorrow, usually by noon, we hope to have it up. Don't keep me to that. We try to get it up, before that, so that you have access to it the next day for those that are not able to be here at this time. The other thing that we want to talk about is that interpretation services is provided. And Daniel, you're here with us right now, so say hello to everybody.
Hola, hola a todos. Buenas tardes.
Thank you, Daniel. And so to get to the interpretation button, you're going to see this button here that I'm pointing at. It'll say the world. And so that's where people will go from English to Spanish, and Daniel will be doing that today. And Marisa, right now, if you can, would you make that announcement to our Spanish speakers so that when I do turn that on, they'll know where to go?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Buenas tardes a todos y bienvenidos. Me encantaría ahorita presentarles o introducirlos a la sección de español. Gracias por acompañarnos una vez más, y tenemos al señor Daniel Tamayo, que nos va a hacer el placer de traducir simultáneamente o interpretar simultáneamente la sesión. En la parte posterior de su pantalla va a haber un círculo o un mundo que dice interpretación. Si gusta optar ese círculo o seleccionar ese círculo, va a ver la sección que dice inglés o español. Seleccione el área de español. Y cuando selecciona el área de español, va a ir a la sala de español, lo cual en ese punto va a escuchar al orador del día a un 20%. Eso significa que cuando Mar Serna o el doctor Chávez estén hablando, usted va a escuchar un 20% de lo que ellos están diciendo, y a un 80% al señor Daniel Tamayo, que va a estar interpretando en español. Si gusta regresar a la sala de inglés para escuchar la sesión en inglés, puede presionar una vez más ese botón de interpretación y seleccionar español. Vamos a también incluir las instrucciones en el chat o en la sección en la cual podemos hablar. Y si tienen una pregunta, me gustaría presentarles a Alma Hernández una vez más, que va a estar también conmigo monitoreando el chat en inglés o en español y contestando sus preguntas. Si tienen una pregunta para el orador, pueden ponerla también en el área de preguntas o en el chat, y vamos a después dejarles saber al orador que tiene preguntas de ustedes. Muchas gracias. Gracias, Mars.
Gracias, Marisa.
Gracias.
And we haven't enabled the interpretation button yet. It will be there. I just wanted to make sure that Daniel was here with us during this time, and as soon as I do enable it, then you will see that button at the bottom. So van a ver el botón tan pronto que pueda mandar, como estamos hablando más anterior, que vamos a deportar a Daniel a la área de español. So, el botón no está ahí todavía, pero ahorita va a llegar el botón porque lo vamos a mandar para que pueda interpretar, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick so I can get to the button here. And I have turned on the interpretation services. So Daniel is now in the other room interpreting, and thank you. So ya está Daniel en el otro salón para que pueda interpretar. And I'm going to start sharing one more time. All right, and the last thing I want to be able to say on this slide is that today's featured speaker series will be available after today's keynote, and I will show you later on where to find that link so that you can go to finding those featured speakers. As I said, my name is Mars Serna, and I have the honor of being your host today, and I want to thank you all again for being here. I also want to thank my little sister from another mister, Marisa Lazoneco, who I have the great honor of serving side by side with in this important work of family and community engagement here at the County of San Bernardino. We also get to serve together on the statewide community engagement initiative and a variety of other things aside from work. We're also great friends outside of work, and our families get to always hang out together. And I mean, not so much the last 6 months with COVID, but you know, in prior times, we've always had a great mutual respect for each other's families and our kids. And as a matter of fact, you know, they call each other, you know, Tío and Tía, and it's just the way it is. It's like brother and sister. So Marisa, can you welcome the rest of our guests here today and say hello?
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you so much. We know how busy you are, whether you're a parent, community partner, staff, administrator. We know how busy you are, how many hats you wear throughout the day. We try to find the best time that works for everyone. So we're just thankful to have you join us. Thank you so much for being part of us in this conversation that really is about our children, how to support our children as partners that we are, as families, community partners, and educators. So thank you for being with us. Thank you, Mars. You are my brother from another mother. I'm so proud to call you that. I'm so proud to call everyone that I can see on the screen a familia, a family. And I'm just honored to serve our children in our counties through the work that we do in family and community engagement. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Marisa. And next up, we have our county superintendent, Mr. Ted Alejandre, who has graciously provided us a video so that he could welcome. So I'm going to hit that so it pops up here and get him on screen for us.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for the annual Family and Community Engagement Summit. The event has taken on a new look this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The summit has gone virtual and will be offered as a 4-day series. Each day will feature an amazing keynote speaker. The need for connection and engagement has transformed, and we have bridged the distance through the use of technology. We now have new opportunities to learn and grow as a community with a focus on equity and access for every student. The summit will prepare parents and caregivers to be active participants in their students' educational journey. I want to thank Cal State San Bernardino Gear Up, San Bernardino County Children's Network, and the Riverside County Office of Education, along with all of our other amazing partners. Your collaborative efforts ensure that we create a vision of equity and a path for everyone in the Inland Empire and beyond. Enjoy your time learning with us.
All right, thank you to Ted for that. And I'm going to now move back to this screen. I'm still trying to manage technology, ladies and gentlemen, so bear with me. All righty. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to turn the mic over to our leader, our director here at San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, our boss lady who allows us and supports us dearly in this work, Dr. Robin MacGyver Brown. Hey, Robin, are you here with us?
Yes, I am here today, but I can't get my camera to share because but that's okay. Just welcome everyone. Thank you for taking the time. I'm watching the participants as the numbers grow. We just appreciate Dr. Chavez for taking his time to come and be with us and share countywide. And we are so thankful for our partners over in Riverside County Office of Education. We appreciate you working with us at all levels. And once again, this couldn't be possible without the dynamic team that I have to work with. I'm so honored to work with Mar Cerna, Marissa Lazo-Neco, and of course, Alma Hernandez. And all three of them, they are powerful. They do great work. And it's a small team of three, but they are outstanding. So please enjoy all of the presentations and the remainder of the week that they have designed for you. Take full advantage of everything they have to offer. And don't forget the breakouts after this wonderful presentation. Dr. Chavez, I remember hearing you speak a couple of years ago, and I know we are in for a dynamic treat. This gentleman is an advocate for parents, and he really believes in all the work that he has done as an administrator and now gone on to work in Santa Ana Unified School District, I understand. Congratulations on that. So with that in mind, have a wonderful day. Please enjoy and sit back, relax, and don't forget to send the link always to a friend, because we'd love to have more people on these events the rest of the week. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robin, for those beautiful words and always supporting the great work we get to do here at the County of San Bernardino. So ladies and gentlemen, just a few reminders again, we are recording. If you are jumping on today, we are recording this for future viewing. We also want to make sure that interpretation services are available if you're just joining. So tenemos servicio de interpretación. And at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little icon that looks like the world. You will click on that. It'll send you over to whichever language you prefer. And Daniel Tamayo has been a great interpreter for us the last couple days. Si necesitas interpretación, como le dije, abajo de la pantalla debe de ver una, no sé cómo se dice, icon por una foto del mundo. Si ahí le imprimes, vas a llegar a dos lenguajes, inglés y español. Imprimes el español y te va a mandar con Daniel Tamayo, que nos está interpretando esta oración hoy. Gracias. I'm going to make sure before I introduce our keynote, Marisa, is there anything else that I need to remember? Because, you know, I always got to say, blame it on my head and not my heart. I don't have a script. I always keep things just moving from the head. And so did I forget anything that, no, we're good. Okay, she got me a thumbs up. I always got to talk to the ladies because they're the ones that keep me organized. And so thank you so much, Marisa, for doing that. And before I forget, in this slide that you see the picture of Robin MacGyver Brown, our Dr. MacGyver Brown, in the middle sandwich between myself, the bald-headed ugly guy, and Robin is Almita. We call her Almita, but Alma Hernandez, who is in this picture, beautiful lady. There she is on the screen. You get to see her. Wave to everybody. There you go. Do you want to say anything today, Almita, or are you good to keep moving? she's a shy one, but you know what? She's the one that has made sure that you are connected today, that sends out the emails and connects you to today's event. So thank you so much, Almita, for your work. So ladies and gentlemen, you know, you didn't come here to listen to me or Marissa or Alma. You got here today because you wanted to support and hear a great leader in the education community, a man that I consider a mentor. And remember, I don't have a script, so I'm just talking from the top of my head. But I had the honor of meeting Dr. Chavez when I worked in a neighboring district in San Bernardino, and there were parents that were coming to San Bernardino to learn about family engagement, and they would come back and they would tell, you know, Dr. Chavez, hey, you know what, we've met this guy named Marcelino Despelon, and you know, I think you should meet each other. And so Dr. Chavez invited me to a school at Fontana Middle School in Fontana Unified School District, and we began to talk, and we just started to see that we had so much in common in the work and the struggle, and in so many ways, you know, just our paths had just crossed in such a beautiful way. Dr. Chavez, as I said, was a principal at Fontana Middle School, but prior to that, you know, I know that he used to work in Pomona as a principal and assistant principal and teacher. And then, he came over to Fontana to grace us with his work for many, many years. And unfortunately, I say this because, I have the honor of sitting on the school board in Fontana, but, he left to grow and to improve education in a neighboring county in Orange County in the Santa Ana Unified School District, to work with a great colleague and friend who also left us from San Bernardino County, who was a former superintendent at Colton Joint Union School District and went to be the superintendent at Santa Ana Unified. And so now Dr. Chavez is there doing great work as a director of EL and bilingual programs. But this man has so much knowledge, so much information to share. And when, I got to meet this guy, he is such a humble man. And so as I introduce him, I want to make sure that I pay some tribute to his roots. And so I'm going to share this for a minute before I get him on to this platform. So I just want to play this music here to get him started. So one of the things you're going to get from Dr. Chavez today is some spiritual healing. This man right here believes in Mother Earth. He believes in those that came before us and those that come after us. And he and I have had these discussions. And I just thought today would be appropriate to play this song that's called Spiritual Healing, because when you hear him, he is going to heal us from the inside out and from the outside in, from the top and bottom, in every direction that comes our way. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce you to my great friend, Dr. Sergio Chavez.
Thank you, Mars. That was very nice. I was thinking when you were describing it, I said, who is that guy? So let me share my screen, everybody. Give me a minute, see if I can. Here we go. All right. All right. Bienvenidos a todos. Good afternoon to everybody. I am tempted to code switch all the time. Those that know me, I go back and forth. It's called translingualism. That's a new term. I want to use it because it's hot. It's a hot term now throughout the state of California. And so I'm translingual. So people ask me, what are you? I'm translingual. I want to thank you all for coming out. I want to thank Mars, Marisa, Dr. MacGyver Brown, Daniel, Alma, and the whole team for being kind enough to invite me, because I'm the one that is honored. And so we are going to take a journey. So I'm going to ask all of you to relax in your seat. We're going to cover a lot of ground, kind of like a roller coaster. And then when we come back to closure, we'll open it up for question and answer. So the first image that we have here is we have an image that is very real in the current reality of a lot of our families. It is the silhouette of a little boy in school, in class, and all he can think about is his family. Will dad come home today? Will he be caught up in a retén? All of those things, and still to be expected to perform at or above standard. And so I just want to keep that in mind to kind of set the tone for today. All right. You got to excuse me. I'm still learning how to change the channels here. Ahí está, va. There we go. All right. So first is introductions. My name is Sergio Chavez. I've been involved in the struggle for justice since I was like 8 years old. So as you can see, I'm 28 now. It's 28 times 2, people. So I've been at this for a while. And, I worked as a teacher, as an admin, and I've been involved in all kinds of different struggles to make sure that our children get the very best that they deserve. because education is a human right. But I didn't learn this on my own. And so I want to dedicate today's presentation to a very special lady who taught me, was my first teacher, and taught by example. She always has worked to also for justice. And she would drag me around as a little kid from one meeting to another. And at the time, I didn't fully understand. Sometimes I didn't even want to be there. But over time, it instilled in me that sense of service for others. And she was involved in the original group of parents that worked with Reverend Marderosian, eventually became Pique. You may have heard of Pique. It originated in San Diego, which is where I'm from. So it's dedicated to that special lady who happens to be my mom, Carmen, and it's her birthday today. So in that spirit, we'll go ahead and continue. So here we have a couple of words that are in Nahuatl, in the Aztec language. And Mexika Tiahui basically means, Mexika doesn't necessarily mean Mexican in the nationalistic perspective. Native people didn't trip like that. Native people felt that we were all children of the earth. And so Mexika loosely means just that, children of the earth. We are all of this earth. And Tiahui means always moving forward, never looking back. That is our role, to always move forward, to continue the struggle, to continue to do what is right, to continue to speak truth to power, to continue to stay focused on what is the main thing, and that is trying to create a better world for the future generations, for all children, regardless of color, regardless of origin. This is a human endeavor. It's not an ethnic endeavor or a nationalistic endeavor. It's a human endeavor, which leads to the second term that you see up there, in Lakesh. In Lakesh, in Nahuatl means that you are the other me. And if you can see the symbol there in the center of the picture of almost like the yin and yang, that's in Lakesh, which means you are the other me and I am the other you. And that is what unites us. And so today's presentation, I want to speak to you as brothers and sisters. I hope you don't mind. I'd like to have a family discussion to face some very real problems that we're facing currently, but we will overcome. It's just a matter of staying focused and being diligent. So with that being said, let's get started. As they say in Spanish, al grano. So we're going to go to the root cause. We're going to take a deep dive in the short time that we have together to try to get a deeper understanding of how is it that we ended up being where we are, and what is it that we need to do to get out of the situation that we are in order to be able to save ourselves, and believe it or not, to save our oppressor. Because as Paulo Freire says, only the oppressed can save the oppressor. So we'll be discussing that and circling back on that later on in the presentation. So before I continue, I want to make sure that we give recognition to the original people of this land. The original people of this area where we are right now are the Tongva people, a very proud people who are still around. They are still here, and they're still wanting to have their voice heard, and they're still doing their ceremonies, and they're still speaking their language, and they're still doing what they need to do. And so we need to do what we need to do, and that is pay respects to them. So in their spirit, we ask them to be here with us today as we explore a problem that is faced by them as well as us. And to kind of put it in context, these are some of the individuals that I kind of try to frame my theoretical and conceptual framework around. The first one is Nelson Mandela, who once said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And that's what it's all about. We're trying to change the world and make it a better place. Cesar Chavez said that the end of all knowledge should be the service to others. You know, all of us want our children to go to college. I humbly want to share with you that that is not enough. It's not enough that they go to college. We need them to come back. We need them to come back and serve the community in order to make that change that Nelson talks about. For today's presentation, I want to feed off of this quote from Paulo Freire, 1993, and he writes, "It is impossible to democratize schools without opening them up to the real participation of parents and the community in determining the school's destiny." So it has to be real. And so we're going to try to get real here today. So I hope your seatbelts are fastened. So let's go. So what is our purpose? What is the purpose of my presentation here today? Well, I want to set a few things straight right off the cuff. I want to put up a disclaimer in order to have a deeper understanding and we can have a more candid conversation. First of all, I want to make sure that we understand that I have an eternal gratitude to all of those champions in education who have dedicated their professional lives to justice and equity for all students and their families. We're talking teachers, cafeteria workers, secretaries, classified, everybody, site administrators, district administrators. There's a lot of them that are working very hard every day to make life better for the children of the schools and the districts that they serve. So I want to say that first and foremost, because in my critique today, I am not referring to those champions. What I am referring to and what I will be focusing on is on the systemic reality in education, that system that we live in, the system that we function in, that we try to survive, that we try to navigate. A lot of parents need to navigate the system. And it's a system that historically has kept poor students of color and their families marginalized and segregated, generation after generation. And so that I will be a harsh critic of, but not of the wonderful individuals that do amazing work within that context. So I want to make that very, very clear, because my critique is rather strong, because all of that impacts, and that gives a reason why there's so much need for parent engagement in schools. So now, talking about engagement, there's different levels of engagement in schools. Starting at the bottom or at the base, a lot of schools, believe it or not, speak about engaging parents, but they practice what is called parent avoidance. They avoid parents at all costs. They try to minimize the parent conferences, minimize the parent meetings, have very just nominal events where parents can be very passively involved, and then everybody scooted off real quick. Everybody go home in the name of security, in the name of safety, in the name of whatever excuse that is given. That's parent avoidance. And many of us have either seen it, witnessed it, engaged it, and lived it. Next step over, we have parent participation. We have the schools where the parents do participate, but it's very passive. They come to the events and they're there. They get the classic PowerPoint, oxymoron like right now, right? But they get the classic PowerPoint and they go home and they don't even get their questions answered. Then there's that next step, the involvement, where they begin to engage, but still not too much. And those are the schools that say, okay, we want our parents here, but we don't want them too empowered, because then they're going to start trying to tell us what to do. So that's that parent involvement. But then you have other individuals at school sites and other schools that truly try to engage the parents and really stop. And what differentiates involvement to engagement? Listening. Listening to parents. No one's going to love that child more than the parent. So no one is going to be more invested in the future of that child more than that parent. So engagement is the next step. But sometimes that's not enough. It's not enough to be engaged. What's needed is to empower our parents so they can advocate for children, so they can advocate for other people's children, and so they can advocate for all the allies that they have at the school site and at the district level. in order to make sure that we impact policy, in order to have a policy or a funding formula that is more just and equitable across the board. And then that leads to the eventual culmination of what is called a parent partnership. The creation of a partnership where the parents and the site administration, the district administration, the staff, the personnel are seen as equals, and they are treated as equals. That way the school site becomes a microcosm of the society that we want to create, an egalitarian society where we work together in conjunction in order to provide all the socio-emotional, academic, moral, and spiritual needs of the children that we serve. Now, that's nirvana, right? That's utopia. But in the meantime, we have a problem, ladies and gentlemen. We have a problem. Researchers have been finding out 20 years ago, Valdez in 1996, did extensive research and found out that Black and brown children are not doing well in American schools. 10 years later, Duncan Andrade went back into that research and tried to get an update and see where we're at. And he says that even 10 years ago, you had schools failing Black and brown children in the community. As a matter of fact, Duncan Andrade from San Francisco went on to say that since Brown v. Board, the famous Supreme Court decision that undid Jim Crow in education, he claims that we're more divided now and we're more segregated now than we were then. So it seems like we're going backwards, according to him. And then recently in 2013, Hasis made another visit on the research and found that in fact, schools are still failing our children today. Now with COVID, you can only imagine, because the only thing that COVID has done has exposed these savage inequalities that Jonathan Kozel would write about, and exposed the great inequities that exist in education. And our children are suffering overall, systemically, even above and beyond the work of champions that are trying to close that gap. So then what does the literature say? Let's bring it back, because we have to make academic analysis of the reality that we live in. It's not enough just to dwell on the emotional. We have to be able to rationalize it and be able to make an argument so that we can create something better, so we can create better policy, so we can create better practices. San Miguel and Donato in 2010 found that Black and brown children are the most marginalized, the most underperforming, and the most underserved children in schools. For many of you, this is nothing new, but it needs to be stated and put like a good salero on the top of the table and at the center of the table, right next to the tortillera, right? Right in the middle of the table, so it always remains the main thing. Auerbach, in her research, very dedicated researcher, found that Black and brown students remain underrepresented at the four-year universities. Now, we all know that in the institutions of higher learning, we are savagely underrepresented. And in the institutions of the prison system, of the criminal justice system, we are overly represented. There is something wrong there, ladies and gentlemen. Something has to change. And then a myriad of authors, Karen Drake Barton, Reese Richardson, and many more, have written extensively on the benefit of having the parents to be engaged in the lives of kids. Very, very important. Now, historically, many schools have served underprivileged schools, have been resistant to meaningful community participation. That's what Schultz said way back in 2006, and I still see that today. Many site administrators do not want to engage their parents. They want to keep it to a minimum, but it is needed to have that engagement, but they avoid it, especially in the most impoverished areas. For whatever reason, we don't know what it is. It could be anything from implicit bias to an unfounded fear of the community, you know, an unfounded fear. So Ferlazo writes in 2011, and he argues that schools need to be relating to families not as clients. That's the business model. I know there's a lot in administration. We talk a lot about the business model, but we can't run a school as a business. It's not a profitable thing, but it's definitely an investment in the future. So we have to see parents and families not as clients, but as partners. And then finally, Valdez in 1996 writes that the school leaders need to engage Black and brown parents with a tremendous level of respect for the cultural wealth that they bring to the school side and stop trying to fix them. Our parents do not need to be fixed. We have to walk away, educators, from that mindset that we have to fix our parents. So let's review real quick as we begin to start speeding up, going over the benefits of parent engagement. What are the benefits? Well, it increases cultural proficiency for everybody. The more the parents are engaged, the more the teachers understand how the culture works, and the more the parents learn about what I call the major culture of the society. 2, academic performance goes up. 3, test scores go up. 4, lower discipline issues. 5, a more positive attitude towards school. 6, an increased level of attendance. You know, a lot of teachers throughout the years as a site admin have told me that, and especially when we switched over to the COVID and distance learning, says, oh my God, I can't get a hold of my students. And my argument was in the back of my mind, well, you had a hard time connecting with them when they were here physically. What can we expect online? So it's important to have those relationships and engage the parents. You get increased homework completion, fewer special education referrals when the parents are engaged. You get a lower dropout rate, higher GPA, higher self-esteem, and the list goes on and on and on and on as to what the benefits are of having parent engagement. Very, very important. I can't stress that enough, the importance that what we need to do as educators, and if we are those champions in the audience, then what we need to do with our colleagues and get them to come and reflect on this and really create a partnership, because now COVID has forced us, right? COVID has forced us into like a forced partnership, because now we really need parents, because without the parents, the kids don't log on. But the parents, a lot of their perspective is, as they say in Spanish, ahora sí, now you want to engage us, now that you need us in order to make sure you meet your ADA. But when we were on full face-to-face, you would avoid us. So that is the talk among a lot of parents. And we have to learn to listen, to acknowledge that and to do better. We have to do better. Every day we have to do better. But it's not new. It's not anything new. There was a time, ladies and gentlemen, where racism was not only prevalent like it is today. Racism is still alive and well. But racism was the law of the land. It was legal to be a racist at one time in this country. Prior to 1954, segregation was legalized. It was legal. And to the left, you see the picture there of a Mexican school. I would imagine that's sometime in the 30s or 40s. And they were totally segregated. But it wasn't separate and equal. It was separate and is severely unequal. What's kind of sad is that today, in a lot of schools, and you walk around certain campuses, it's still unequal. So the more things change, the more they stay the same sometimes. Here are some other signs that I pulled off the internet that were actual signs. The one on the left says no dogs, no Negroes, and no Mexicans. And it was by the Lone Star Restaurant Association in Texas. So they would put that on restaurants. On the right was a similar sign that they would put throughout the area here in this country at one time, where we were not wanted. And many would argue that we're still not wanted, and perhaps that helps to attribute why we have so much avoidance. But it's important to look at it cold and look at it and analyze it for what it is. Look at it raw. So racism is alive and well. More recently, in Alabama in 2011, they passed a resolution or a law making it illegal for undocumented students or Latino kids to attend school because they didn't have papers. And they actually worked in collaboration with ICE. much like they did in 1963 in the same Alabama, where it was segregated. And at that time, it was our black brothers and sisters that were not allowed into the schools. It backfired though, because shortly after that, a lot of the parents that were essential workers in Alabama, see, one thinks that there's only Latinos in California and Texas, but we're all over North Carolina, Virginia, and in this case in Alabama, the parents left. They said, okay, you don't want us, we'll leave. And they went to another state, or they went back to Mexico. And all of a sudden, Alabama was in a dilemma because their ADA dropped by a large percentage. So much so that they rescinded their law, and they started publicly calling the students back and the families back because they were not going to school. So as you can see here in this case, a lot of our familias, a lot of our families stepped into history, and they didn't realize that by leaving, they sent a powerful message of how important they are to the school system and all the other systems, that we don't come to take, that we give more than we take. And in this case, it's ADA. But that's the history. It's a brief history. And then let's talk about economics. Here, this infographic that's here, you see here this infographic. I won't read it all, but it shows here that the top 1% own close to 40% of the wealth. And the bottom 60% only own 2.3% of the wealth. That the richest 400 Americans, only 400, have the same amount of wealth as 160 million people just like us. That between 2009 and 2012, 95% of all the new wealth went to the top 1%. And many in the top 1% did not even pay any taxes, like Walmart, Verizon, GE, and Boeing. They didn't pay any taxes. You try not to pay your taxes. What do you think will happen? So it's unequal. And that tax money is needed in order to finance schools and in order to finance health and all the other things that are needed to run a democratic society. So it's important to understand this because it gives us an understanding of how is it that things are the way they are. Why is it that the wealthiest country in the world does not have the basic needs in the most impoverished school districts? It's because the money is going somewhere else, ladies and gentlemen, and we have to be aware of this. For those of us that know this already, this is a little bit of extra evidence for you. Here's another infographic. So this one shows that the top 20% own 84% of the wealth. What's wrong with that? What is wrong with the issue that 20% own 84% of the wealth of this very wealthy country? The middle class only own 4%. The working poor, which make up the vast majority of the families that we work with, 0.2% of the wealth. And our poorest 20%, almost 0% of the wealth. So as you can see, the root cause of a lot of our problems are economic in nature. So we've had a long history of struggle. So Duncan Andrade would write in his writings, he says, you know what, the system is not broken, including the educational system is not broken. It is functioning exactly as it was originally designed, to become a mirror image of society. Because if we were to go back and superimpose here, if we were to superimpose here the test scores and the distribution of test scores, we would see that the wealthiest kids have the highest test scores and the poorest kids have the lowest test scores. So we have what they call education by zip code. So where you live determines much more how your child will do in school than the level of character and integrity. And we're not alone. Native Americans have long suffered this. You know, Native Americans were taken away from their families, placed on reservations, in boarding schools where their hair was cut and they were forced to learn English, to forget their language, to forget their culture, to forget their beliefs. They were punished whenever they tried. Our African American brothers and sisters, at one time, it would cost them their lives if they found out that they knew how to read. That is the history. That is the root of where we're at. And it helps to explain why African Americans now are still struggling in education. And then for ourselves, we have a very similar history when it comes to the history of segregation, with the main focus being Americanization and assimilation. There's a lot of amazing teachers out there, but there's some teachers out there that they're hell-bent on just making sure that Juanito and Maria or Walter, right, learn how to be good Americans. And they focus a lot on the Americanization piece and the assimilation piece. Never mind that they can't read, but as long as they know certain facts and figures, then they should be fine. Well, I don't know about you, but for me, that's not right. That's not just. It's not fair. So let's talk about some myths. I can't see you, but raise your hand if you care about your child. How many of you care about your child? Raise your hand. I see your hands raised. Good. Well, did you know that according to my research, the overarching mindset, and I'm talking about mindset, what people don't share out loud, is that a lot of people in schools believe that parents of color don't care about their kids' education. You hear it all the time. Oh, it's because the mom doesn't care. It's because the mom doesn't care, because the parents don't care. They don't value education because they don't care. Well, I'm sorry, but that's a myth. So we need to take that out of our mind. That is not true. That is fake news, to use that modern term. Second, that immigrant parents are uneducated. Some of the most educated people that I've ever met never went to school, but they were educated. And in a lot of cultures, education does not necessarily mean that they were schooled. There is a difference between being educated and being schooled, ladies and gentlemen. Being educated is how to treat others with respect, how to be open-minded, how to appreciate our surroundings, how to be wise, and a lot of our parents are extremely educated in that respect. That's myth number 2. Myth number 3, the parents should not speak to their child in Spanish because they get confused. How many parents do you know that were told that when their child first entered kindergarten? No, don't talk to them in Spanish because then they're going to get confused. So then what happens? Mom goes home and says, ay viejo, no hay que hablarle el inglés, en español, se va a confundir. Let's not talk to them in Spanish because they're going to get confused. Abuelita that's there in the living room stops talking to the kids out of love. Isn't that amazing? She stops talking to the kids out of love. And we all know. Look at the brother yesterday in his powerful, powerful message in his keynote speech, talking about the importance of communication. So what have we done? What damage have we done as a system to countless families by telling them the lie that by them keeping on with their primary language, they're going to get confused in English, when all you have to do is go to Canada or Europe and you find that there are children there that are taught in multiple languages and they are not confused. You know what they are? Multilingual. Be able to think in multiple languages. And the next myth is this one that says, I don't see color. I see all my kids the same. I remember growing up, I was always told that. Even recently, I get told that. Oh, no, I don't see color. And one day I just got tired of it. And I said, why are you only telling me? I'm not the only person in the room. Why are you telling me you don't see color? So it sounds funny and all, but when anybody says that I don't see color, guess what? They see color. They just don't want to admit it. And they can't I want them to see my color. We have to learn to love ourselves again. We have that beautiful brown. We have that beautiful black. We have that beautiful red, the beautiful yellow, the beautiful white. So it's not an issue of, giving back any hatred whatsoever. It's about loving ourselves. And lastly, for the sake of this presentation, that poor parents of color need to be trained, that they need to be developed, that they need to be fixed, which is a roundabout way of saying they need to be assimilated. You know, there's a lot of even famous individuals that write about parent engagement, famous authors that at this point will remain unnamed, who actually profess that if only these parents would act more like middle-class white parents, then they would have better outcome with their kids. That is a myth. That is a lie. You know, they don't need to be trained. They don't need to be fixed. To all the parents that are out there, you're perfect. You're perfect. You're perfect. Just the way you are. There's no need for you to be fixed. You're doing everything you can out of the bottom of your heart for your children. And we need to recognize that. It's hard. We live in a society that is hard. Look at the income inequality. Look at back here. Look at the income inequality. It's not easy. It's not easy because the working poor have to work 2-3 jobs. And the price that we pay is that the child is being raised by TV. So let's look at some realities. What are some of the realities that we're facing? Well, question. What does parent engagement look like in Mexico? So in my research, I found in my interviews with parents that, for example, in Mexico, if I may use that as an example, a lot of times the parents didn't really feel the need to engage in school. So why, Chavez? That doesn't make any sense. Well, it does if you start to think that the majority of the teachers in Mexico tend to live in the same town as the parents do. They live in the same community. They're members of the same community. They probably go to the same churches. They probably are related. They probably run into that teacher after school selling paletas, trying to make ends meet. So there's a connection beyond the classroom. So a lot of parents feel that level of trust that they can send their kids to school. And there isn't that necessary need as we see it here. And so when they come here, they come with that same perception. They come with that same predisposition. They come with that same sense of trust. Because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They drank the Kool-Aid. They saw Canal 34, they saw Canal 52, showing how this is an eternal Disneyland. And a lot of parents come here like, oh my God, I have arrived. And they feel trusting that they can leave their children, that they'll be in good hands. And in many cases, if they fall in the hands of those champions that I talked about at the beginning of my presentation, then yes. But what if they don't? Then that's why we have so many issues with our young people today in our schools that are disengaged, because there's that gap. So the next question I ask myself is then, what does parent engagement look like in the affluent communities here? So I went around and I checked out different schools in affluent areas, and I saw almost the same relationship that what they would tell me about in the small pueblos in Mexico, because the teachers are from the same class as the parents. They probably went to school together. They go to the same gym. They probably go to the same churches. They're probably even neighbors. They live in the same community. So they are members of the community. So the school becomes an extension of the home. So when the parent drops off the child, all they need to do is connect eyes, make eye contact, and boom, the teacher says, boom, I got this. And the child just goes on to class. And perhaps the level of engagement does not need to be so intense, because there's a sense of homogeneity between the parent and the school. Now, what does the parent engagement look like in poor communities of color, like Fontana, like Rialto, like Pomona, like San Bernardino, like Santa Ana, like LA? Well, there we have a disconnect, ladies and gentlemen, and we have to be conscious of that. The majority of the teachers do not live in the same community that the parents live in. There's a disconnect. And there is an issue of what I call, and I coined the term Fort Apache, where a lot of teachers parachute in every morning and they helicopter out every night without ever making contact. There are teachers that I've known through the years that have worked in predominantly Spanish-speaking communities for decades, and they never took the time to say good morning in Spanish because of that whole Americanization mindset, and not that mindset that education is a human right. So we do have a difference, and that is why bullet number 3, ladies and gentlemen, is the climax of my presentation. Bullet number 3 is exactly why we need active parent engagement, empowerment, partnership, is because there is a gap between the teaching staff and the parents, and we have to close that gap in order to make sure that our students do not fall between those cracks and we lose them forever to the other institutions, to the institutions of poverty, to the institutions of drugs, to the institutions of drugs, to the institutions of criminal activity, to the institutions of the juvenile justice system. When it comes to English learners, Patricia Gandara writes in her article that they go through what is called a triple segregation, because our English learners not only don't know English, but they more than likely are poor, especially if they're migrant workers in the migrant education program. Those are the families that put the food on our tables. Those are the families that feed us. So the next time you're enjoying your salad, don't forget those families that pick the lettuce and the tomatoes so you could enjoy your salad with a little vinaigrette. And also because of race, because they tend to be the other. Educating the other all of a sudden becomes an issue. All of a sudden when we educate the other, all of a sudden there's no money. All of a sudden the funds are short. All of a sudden, oh my God, what are we gonna do? We don't have resources, we don't have this, we don't have that. When we were not educating the other, sky's the limit. I've seen it happen over time, and I've seen it happen when we compare one district to another, when the demographics are different. And COVID has only served to further expose those inequities, to further marginalize poor families of color. So right now during COVID, our parents are so disconnected. Our children are so disconnected. And don't get me wrong, I go back to my original point at the beginning. There's a lot of wonderful individuals, amazing individuals that are working day and night to try to bridge that gap. And they're so burned out and tired because it's so monumental, the task. But money is there. You don't believe me? Check this out. Let's go back to this puppy. The money is there. It's just that it's not in the hands of those that need it the most. The money is there. So money is there. Don't ever believe the hype that there's no money. Money is there. It's just distributed differently. That doesn't mean that we're free of obstacles. So we do face obstacles. When I interviewed the parents for my research, they mentioned los obstáculos, the obstacles, what stood in the way from you fully engaging in the schools. We already talked about one, and that is the perception that a lot of our parents bring from their native countries, where they don't feel the need to engage the way they engage, the way they're needed to engage here, because they're used to the engagement that they had in their native countries, where there's that connection. You know, they have a common understanding that teachers teach. That's what they do. And they're the best for it, and they're the best at it. And so there's that trust, donde entregan los niños, they deliver the children. Every single morning, you have the river of moms with the little baby carts coming to the school, almost as if it was a pilgrimage every morning to deliver their children at the altar that is called school, to pick them up at the end of the day and then find out years later that their child still cannot read. So we got a serious problem, but there are obstacles in the way that keep from parents getting engaged. From my research, I found these as being the top obstacles that parents talked about. The first one is el maltrato, poor customer service. been mistreated? How many of you will do that hand raising thing again? That is pretty nice. It lit up my little PowerPoint. How many of you have had a negative experience at school, or know somebody that had a negative experience at school, heard about someone having a negative experience at school, or just know that they have a negative experience in school? I see a lot of people with their hands up, and that is a very real. There's so many hands up, you're covering my screen. That's amazing. Wow, mira, qué bonito. Next, they talk about racism. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It could be your most spice up parent that came from that little pueblito, and they come here after a while, they get it. They say, no, es el racismo. Es el racismo, it's the racism. They would tell me point blank. They can see it. Because you know why, ladies and gentlemen? Because a lot of our poor communities that come here, they come and perform essential duties. They don't have time to play around. They don't have time to dress it up. That's why among our community, al grano is such a powerful term. Let's get to the point. The problem is racism. They see me come in the office and they walk the other way. I call, they don't pick up the phone. When I call, they say, no hablo español, and they hang up on me. I don't get the help that I need. And then down the road, when my child is failing, they turn around and they blame me for it. How many parents have I heard say that? It's amazing. Next is the issue of poverty that we talked about earlier. Cultural blindness. You know, the, oh, I don't see color type thing. Or even worse, cultural destructiveness. When we allow individual negative, toxic ideologies that people carry. Everybody's entitled to believe what they want. But when they bring it into the classroom and they manifest it in the classroom at the detriment of the children they're serving, then that becomes cultural destructiveness. You're destroying the culture of the child. You create a transactional experience where you say you can only advance if you abandon your culture, if you abandon your grandma, if you abandon your language, if you abandon and walk away. And then what happens? Our children grow up without any roots. And what happens to a tree without any roots? The slightest rain will knock that tree down. And how many knocked down trees do we have, ladies and gentlemen, in our community? How many of our young people do we have that we have lost already to gangs, drugs, prison, ignorance? How many of our young people are embarrassed of their grandmothers? Because, ay, ma, no hablas inglés. Oh, what do you know, mom? You don't know anything. Why? Because the children have drank the Kool-Aid of cultural destructiveness and they've internalized it. And they're the first ones to tell their parents, don't come to school. Do not engage because I'm embarrassed. The next one is deficit thinking and stereotypes. We talked about that. The propagation of myths about a lot of our parents. That if an African-American mother is only advocating for a just treatment of her child, she's just an angry black woman. That's a stereotype. That's cultural destructiveness. When she has every reason to be advocating for her child. Well, how come the parent doesn't come to the parent meetings? The parent never gets involved except when their child's in trouble. Well, I can honestly tell you that chances are is because that parent was once a student in the educational system. And when that child was in the educational system, that child probably had a traumatic experience in the educational system. And now as an adult, they'll have nothing to do with the educational system. And they get overly aggressive and hostile in protecting their child, thinking that the same thing will be done to their child that was done to them. That's the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, I came here today humbly to share with you my truths that I found along my journey of justice, along the journey of trying to create change and create a better world. Could I be wrong? Could be. Are there differences of opinions? Probably. But I guarantee you that they do resonate with a lot of people. See, one thing Mars knows me well. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a minister. I'm not a politician. No kudos to you, Mars. You're amazing. But for me, I'm not a politician. I'm not trying to win votes. I'm not trying to bring around converts. I'm just here today to share with you the truth from what I've seen it, from someone that has experienced it on the outside in walking with my parent, and on the inside, having worked in the system for over 30 years. And again, I'm not talking about the champions. I'm talking about the systemic racism that exists in the educational system that impedes our parents from engaging in order to protect, advocate, and ensure that the children receive an honest, just, and fair education so they can overcome the obstacles of poverty and be able to become adults that can contribute to society and little by little bring about change for the entire community and changing the reality of that community, one child at a time. That's what I'm talking about. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are willing, but they don't know how. So there's issues of efficacy. A lot of teachers have a very hard time. It's not easy. It's not easy to teach. People think it's easy. It's very difficult. It's very time consuming to prep. Teaching is like being a chef in a fine restaurant. Most of your time is going to go in preparing the meal, even before you start cooking. So a lot of people don't know how, but instead of getting the professional development that they need, they turn around and blame the child. It says, oh, it's because of you that you don't learn. When we should be thinking about it's about us because we can't teach in some cases. The other thing that resonated in my research were the language barriers. Zero attempt to reach out to the communities. We have schools that have generations of parents that are Spanish speaking, and yet to this day do not have Spanish speaking staff. And their answer when they have an L1 student that doesn't have any English is to transfer them to another school or put them with another teacher and ship them out. You think that's fair? It's not fair. What if that school is farther away from the home? So the language barrier becomes an issue for parents to keep them from engaging, that we have an obligation as educators to overcome. Parents have had a negative experience in school, like I mentioned earlier. We have a lot of parents that want to be involved, but if they don't go to work, they don't have a job. And so a lot of our parents work 2-3 jobs. Let me ask you, let's do that show of hands again. How many of you know parents that work long hours or work 2-3 jobs, or you yourselves work 2-3 jobs? And then you get labeled as being a bad parent, or you fall into that myth that you don't care for your child. You know that is not true. You know that you care for your child. And that's why you take on 2-3 jobs and work on the weekends, knowing that you run the risk of leaving your kids alone. We don't do that by choice. Then there's the issue of social capital. We put social capital on so many things, ladies and gentlemen. We put social capital on language. It's implicitly given to the world that English is superior to Spanish. And our children internalize that. And that's why they don't want to speak Spanish, because it doesn't have the same value. If you don't dress, or if your hands are greasy because you work with your hands, then you don't have as much social capital as the one that walks in with a suit and tie. That is wrong. We need to change that. And then so what ends up happening is a lot of schools become a social reproduction of the bigger order. So in schools, you have your 20% of students that are doing great at the expense of the 80% that are failing. I don't know about you, but that kind of looks familiar to this, right? 20% are getting the good grades and the rest are not. It's the same. It's the same. It's called social reproduction. You should write that down because that's important to understand, that if we're not careful, that's what happens. Then there's subtractive schooling. What does that mean? Subtractive schooling is this. Juanito, you come to school, you only know Spanish. The faster you walk away from Spanish and just learn English, the faster you'll grow in this society. That's subtractive schooling. where you have to give up who you are in order to get an education. And how many of our community, black and brown, have drank from that Kool-Aid, where we sacrificed our identity, our connection with our elders, our ability to sit down and have chocolate caliente with abuelita in order to be able to, quote unquote, succeed. And then later on, we're lost. We're lost. How many of you know somebody like that? That instead of being in prison, they were actually successful. But in the process of that success, they lost themselves. They're lost to knowledge of self. They're lost to their community. And our community ends up having what they call a zero net gain. All of that builds a level of distrust. And that's what the bottom line. A lot of times school administrators are so worried about parent complaints, and parents are so angry at the school board meetings because, ladies and gentlemen, we live in a mantra on a platform that builds distrust. There's no mutual trust because there's so many different agendas at play. And a lot of times those agendas conflict with each other, which ends up creating a toxic school culture. How many of you, and we'll do that inquest because that's pretty fun. You guys light up my PowerPoint. How many of you know of a school that has a toxic school culture? Maybe not your own, but how many of you know of a school that has a toxic school culture where everybody's angry all the time? The teachers are angry, the kids are angry, everything's just terrible. Cool. So then what do we do now? It's not enough just to talk about it. We have to take action. We have to do things. We have to understand ourselves. Nos tenemos que entender nosotros mismos. We have to understand what are our strengths, what are our limitations, be able to reach out like the brother that spoke yesterday so eloquently. Get help. In a nutshell, that's what it means. Get the help that we need so we can be better and be more strategic. We have to come in contact with the cultural wealth of our community. Our parents bring a lot of wealth with them. They bring everything from navigational wealth to the wealth of the viejitos. They bring a lot of wealth. They bring the wealth of being so positive. It's funny how our communities, our poor communities, we've been through hell, ladies and gentlemen. We've been through poverty, through racism, through slavery, through Jim Crow, to segregation, through 227, through 187, through massive deportations, to putting children in cages. And we're still here. And we still show up to work. And we still have the energy to smile. We still have the energy to sing. We still have the energy to dance. Because we are wealthy, ladies and gentlemen. You are wealthy. You have no idea how wealthy you are and the beauty that you bring. But you have to learn to see it. You have to see it. You have to look in the mirror and see it. How can you ask your children to see it if mom and dad, you don't see it first? You need to see the beauty you have. Understand the difference between parent involvement and engagement. When you go to your school, ask yourself, what's going on here? Is this parent avoidance? Is this parent involvement? Is this parent engagement? Paulo Freire speaks, and he says that we have to develop language. We have to develop and utilize the language. We have to use words in order to describe our thoughts, in order to critique what exists around us. And part of my goal today was to give you or to share with you humbly some key words that can be used so that you can do something that is called sense making, making sense of your environment and saying, is the condition that I'm living in at the school a condition where I am being avoided, where I am invisible, where I am not seen, where I am not heard? Or is this an environment where my word means something, where my teachers and admins see me as human beings, as full partners, and then everything else in between? We have to understand the history, ladies and gentlemen. The educational system at one time excluded people of color. at one time excluded women. It was only for wealthy white men in order to maintain the status quo. We brought about affordable, not the Affordable Care Act. I'm having a senior moment where affirmative action to try to rectify that, and that was taken away because then they were calling that reverse discrimination. And now it comes out. You've seen the scandals on the news, how the 1%, the people that have 80% of the wealth, how they just buy their way into universities. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but to me, education is a human right. Every child deserves a right to be free from poverty, free from racism, free from cultural genocide, free from racism and discrimination, to be able to live a full life, to be able to live a life in dignity, to be able to one day provide for his or her family, to be able to make a change, to be that doctor. And why not? Why not? You know, when our babies, our black and brown babies are born in the hospital, what do we say? Oh, hopefully he'll go to college. But with those in the affluent families, when their babies are born, that's a given. It's where they're going, because it's given that they're going. I know, I've been told many, many times, Chavez, chill out. Not all kids will go to college. That's why we have vocational school, and I'm not knocking it. But I do have a problem when 90% of our kids are there. I do have a problem when that's the only thing that's promoted. When you go to other communities, that's not even a consideration. It's like, what? No, you're being a doctor or a lawyer. And why not us? Why not the children of slaves? Why not the children of campesinos? Why not the children who built this country? Why not the children who built this economy? Why not the children who still have to go to work under the ashes and the smoke of the fires to pick the crops and to pick the lettuce in order to have the salads that we enjoy every day? Why can't they be doctors? Why can't they be lawyers? Once when I was told that, I was an elementary school principal, and I asked one of the kindergarten teachers to let me borrow one of the little girls. Not for long, only for like 10 minutes. Don't think that I took her home. You know, for a few minutes, and I brought the little girl in along with her mom, and I put the little girl on top of the table, and I asked my staff, how many of you have the courage to stand up and tell this little girl at her age right now that she's not college material? It's a mindset, ladies and gentlemen. We have to start treating our children as a national treasure. Our children are our treasure, ladies and gentlemen. They are the ones that are reason for living. And I ask you again rhetorically, and if you can answer again and light up my PowerPoint, how many of you love your children with all your heart? And to make the list longer, how many of you love your children sometimes? We all know what we're talking about, right? When the kids get to a certain age. And it's about this, ladies and gentlemen, about making sure that the Maslow pyramid of needs are met, that the children have their physiological needs met. Do they have food? Do they have clothes? Do they feel safe? Do they feel loved? Do they have high self-esteem? Do they have the basic skills? Are they kept clean? And then once those things happen, then they can self-actualize. That means when you get to the gray area at the top of this pyramid, according to Maslow and according to many psychologists, that's when children are ready to learn. So ladies and gentlemen, when we compare our children in San Bernardino, Fontana, Ontario, Pomona, Santa Ana, LA, to children in Irvine, Newport Beach, Claremont, Beverly Hills. Those children are not better than your children. They just have their Maslow needs met, ladies and gentlemen. They're already going to kinder, already self-actualized. Ladies and gentlemen, they're ready to learn. And our babies are going to school in the red, ladies and gentlemen, in the red. Con hambre, they're hungry. Has nothing to do with intelligence, and it has everything to do with meeting their primary needs. And that's why the struggle for education is a struggle for justice. Because someone once wrote that education is the ultimate equalizer. It is. And that's why it's so important that we have high quality instruction. Here's the pyramid of needs in Spanish. So first is la salud física, then is la salud psicológica. How many of our children have psychological problems? How many of us have psychological problems? And now in the age of COVID, have senses of hopelessness. We need to have our own interpersonal networks, be self-realized and self-actualized, that we feel included in a society. You know, back in the 70s and 80s, a lot of our young people joined gangs. And a lot of people ask, why do they join gangs? I go, well, because as human beings, we have the definite need to belong. And if the institution of the school will reject us, then we'll go find somewhere else to belong. And there is a saying, again, the authors are escaping me, so please forgive me. There's a saying that if the children in the village do not feel the warmth of the village, they will burn down the village just to feel its warmth. Our children need to feel warm. They need to feel loved. They need to know that education is a human right. They need to understand that the only difference between them and the children in the rich neighborhoods of the top 1% that own 80% of the wealth of the country is nothing to do with intelligence, and has everything to do with the fact that those wealthy kids have all of their Maslow needs met and they are ready to learn. And our babies are not ready to learn. They're in the red, they're in the orange. That is our challenge. And that's why you need to be engaged. It's an issue of equity versus equality. There is a difference. In the first picture, all the children are given the same. In the second picture, they adjust it so that the little guy can look over the fence. But I like to entertain a third picture, and that's get rid of the wall. Now that's a noble effort, huh? We're not there trying to build so many walls. We should stop building walls and start building bridges. We should open it up so that everybody has a right to live their life, to pursue happiness, as the Constitution states. So we have some recommendations. And I won't read them all. These are based on my research. And I figured, why not cite myself, you know? I mean, I did earn it, and I want to share it. Based on my research, this is what I found. Recommendations for educators. Engage parents from their perspective. Stop trying to fix them. Establish a strong and well-developed two-way relationship with parents, not just the conventional one-way. That conventional ELAC meeting. Remember those ELAC meetings, my fellow educators, where the parents show up, we show the PowerPoint, and then we have 5 minutes left. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Please grab a cookie on your way out. That we build capacity among parents so that they can have a comprehensive understanding how the educational system works. They're not ignorant. They just don't know how the system works. That they overcome the fear of losing control. A lot of my colleagues are afraid of losing control. Don't be afraid. If you really want to know power and control, go outside in a rainstorm and witness lightning. That's power. For us, the time that we have is short, and our process should always be to pursue sharing that control with our parents, working together as partners. Connect with parents with respect for their language, with respect for their culture. One thing that I always noticed growing up is that a lot of times teachers changed my name. So I started out as Sergio, right? Then I became Sergio and then Serge. But I dare not change their name because then it's on, right? So then we have a problem. So we have to be able to connect with respect. That we provide specific professional development for the front office staff so they can develop their cultural proficiency, increase their customer service and professional etiquette. Ser amables is big in our community. To be polite. To create an authentic parent center at every school site where the parents run it. That will be their center. They will be each other's teacher. And they will be such a great asset for teachers once they know that they have a place that they are accepted. That we provide a comprehensive homework assistance program. That we actively encourage parents to engage in different committees throughout the district. Like you are here, like the work that Mars does and Marisa, amazing work. I have nothing but tremendous admiration and respect for the work that you do. That we actively and strategically build the needed funds of knowledge so that teachers can fully understand, so we can stop approaching our schools like Fort Apache, ladies and gentlemen. That we actually come to school and engage the surrounding community as true partners. That we as educators be highly visible on and off campus, down the street, at 7-Eleven, in the neighboring communities, that they see that we're not afraid, that we're ready to engage in real dialogue and relationship with the surrounding community. That we understand that in marginalized communities of color, the burden and the responsibility to connect falls on us. We have to take the first step as educators. That we develop systems to facilitate regular and substantive communication opportunities. The opportunity needs to be fluid. And yes, I know there's a great impetus in getting it right, making sure the message is correct. But I can guarantee you, I have messed up many times as an admin and given misinformation inadvertently. But when you have a strong relationship and you build a community of trust, you can laugh at yourself and say, la regué, I messed up, I'm so sorry. And your community will forgive you because they realize that you're human. You know why? Because our community, our poorest communities, are our communities that are the most human. They're the most human. A lot of our most poorest parents might have 3 tortillas, but they'll give you 1. That's what they bring to the table. That we consistently and conscientiously open up the school to parents. Don't be afraid. A lot of things, I know we have to be careful, we have to be safe. But in all my years as an administrator, the greatest security I ever had was the parents. And I miss them so. The parents that come to love their school because their children are safe there. Why wouldn't they protect that school? Huh? If they know that their child is loved at that school. Next, that we empower parents to advocate for their own kids and to speak truth to power when challenging unjust policies. I'm not talking about individuals, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about policies and systems that need to be changed. Remember, you cannot have a viable democracy if your population is misinformed. And you cannot have an informed population unless you have a just educational system. I know we went on a long journey, but right now the roller coaster is coming back up. Like, remember those days in Disneyland, which may never come back, but when it comes up and it starts slowing down, I have a final message to my community. A mis padres, Brothers and sisters, the ancestors through me have me tell you that we are corn. Somos gente de maíz. The corn is who we are. Sacred. And remember that we as the parents are the corn husk. We're the mazorca. Our job is to be strong, firm, healthy, forthright, because the semillitas, collectively, those are our children, ladies and gentlemen. And it's our job as the mazorca, as the corn husk, to provide order, to provide nutrition, to provide safety, to provide a sense of purpose, to provide an identity, to provide a celebration of color. As you can see, there's different colors there, and it's all good. And the leaves, that's the love. Because at the end of the day, much like this presentation that your humble servant has shared with you, is really a message of love. That's it. It's a message of love. Love yourself. Love all kids, especially the ones that are not yours. Thank you. So I open it up, Mars, for questions.
First of all, Dr. Chavez, I know that we don't have a clap button for everyone to start clapping. I know you have the hand raising. You had that hand raising going really, really good today, man. I had to go in there and clear it out a couple times. But I see people raising their hands right now, and I'm hoping that's for the applause. But I will say this, as I was looking at the chat today, and I try to look through it, and it's an awesome feeling to see that those that were attended today did go through a spiritual healing in some way, because I had started that today with the music, and those that were in the chat, and I know you didn't have time to check it, but I'm gonna give you some highlights. Thank you for speaking truth. Real talk, again, that's been a theme the last couple of days, is that between you and Dr. Walker, we're having some real talk about how we fix our educational system. There's also some sad truths that were said today, and you know, that was with your data that you are giving us, and it's sad to see that. One of my colleagues that talked about the digital disruption is adding to this inequity gap, and now that we've been in COVID for the last 6 months, I think we've seen that in education heavily.
Yes.
And, you know, it's brought light to that even more, and there's opportunities to fix that. We know that. Someone just said, "Preach, brother." You said you're not a minister, but you were preaching today, man. You were giving, you know, some truths and preaching just a word, a gospel to all of us. And today, you know, you were powerful. And I do want to fix a wrong that I did yesterday. Yesterday, I said that you went to San Diego State University, and you actually went to UC San Diego. So I need to fix that little blooper that I had yesterday. But
it's okay,
way,
Mars. It's okay, because you know what, brother?
Dr. Walker.
Yeah, it's okay. Because at the end of the day, brother, where I got my real education was with my people, man.
Yes. But you know, I wholeheartedly commend you, because when we were having these conversations years ago about you going back and getting your doctorate and getting that doctorate from Cal Poly Pomona, the Broncos, as I understand, right? It is Bronco.
Yes.
The Broncos, you went so that you could do this research around family engagement, and your information is so powerful to all of us. So thank you for doing that research, and you are legit, right? Because you had done this research not only in Fontana but surrounding communities, and some of the data that you showed us is impeccable. So at this time, for those of you that are still on, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And if you have a question for Dr. Chavez today, please feel free to write that in the Q&A area. Those of you that spoke on the chat, thank you again for your comments. And Alma and Marisa, thank you for you know, monitoring that chat. I was going through there with my ADHD, because I can't just sit still. So I was playing with all the buttons here on Zoom, and answering some people back. So thank you for that. But if anyone has a question, this is the time to go ahead and put that in the Q&A.
First, I just wanted
Yes.
to let Dr. Chavez know that his family from Fontana are all here, and they're so happy to hear you again. And they, you know, they're missing you, and they wanted to thank you for everything that you've done for them.
I miss them all. Los quiero mucho.
Thank you, Dr. Chavez. I don't see any questions coming up. There's one. I guess one is, when are you going to come back and present? we'll make that happen, right, Dr. Chavez?
I'm at your service, brother. Whatever you need
Yes.
me, I'm here.
You have Emily, who is saying, Dr. Chavez, wondering if you have a book yet. And I don't know if you're getting published yet, but do you have a book?
Not yet. For now, my book is written across the faces of the children I serve.
Oh,
That's
wow.
the best way I can answer that.
Wow.
They are my book. I have a lot of
And you
success
have-
stories. A lot of our beautiful babies have gone on to do great things. And but I'll write a book. I don't have time. No hay tiempo. I'm always working. And right now, truth be told, I'm helping my compadre. We're putting floors. And so I'm always working all the time. So, but yes, one day. But in the meantime, it is written across the faces of the children that I serve. And I mean that so deeply and so profoundly. Because you talk to any of my babies, my little canguros that I call affectionately, and you ask them about chacala machaca, and they know what that means. and they know what that means. And they have a pretty good idea of what they want to do with their life. And they want to do good things. And they know that knowledge is power. And because at the end of the day, you could always burn a book, but you cannot burn someone's heart, you know? And so, yeah, but I will, though. I agree. I need to get it down in writing. I have it, as I call it, Chicano literature. I have a lot of my notes always written when it comes to me in napkins and the like, whatever happens. So a lot of times when pre-COVID, I would do a lot of my meditation while drinking coffee at a little changarrito. You know, those little changarritos, those are always the best, the ones that are family run. And I would just ask for extra napkins, and right there I'm writing and but the problem is then I lose the napkins, and ya valió papas, right? So, you know, I have to get a better method. I agree. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for that. There was a chacala machaca there from Diana Gutierrez. I believe you have had the honor of being a colleague with
the honor
her.
and the privilege to be a colleague of Diana. She's a real leader. She's a leader. So I just want to end with this: I'm not a leader. I've never professed to be a leader. I'm a warrior, and there's a difference. And I don't mean a warrior in the violent sense. I mean it in the spiritual sense. The real leader are the women. The women are the leaders. When the women stand up and say, ya basta, it's over. So we're waiting, sisters, to stand up and say, ya basta. And I, for one, as a man, I'm ready to follow. So in the meantime, pues, me pongo a charlar, right, to share my truth, pero I know my role. I understand my role.
Thank you, Dr. Chavez. And, you know, they want to know, I could answer this one for you, but are you on social media?
Not personally. I am through the department. So if you look up Santa Ana EL department, I'm on Twitter. And I think that's it. Facebook. We have Facebook. Me personally, not yet. I will be también. But I can, and Diana, feel free to chime in, and anybody that's out there that knows me, I can't see the full list. At the same token, what's hilarious, because I used to be told all the time by my superiors that I need to handle more social media, and granted, I agree. But in the meantime, I would say, well, you can go anywhere in Fontana and they know who I am, and they know the work that we do. And so, la palabra, word of mouth, right? Because remember, social media is only maybe 10, 20 years old, and our people have been here for thousands of years. And so we are able to communicate. Yeah. Thank
I
you.
just saw a text, Marisa. I didn't. You muted yourself. Stop it. I just had to put that shout out there real quick. Well, you know what? Thank you so much, Dr. Chavez. As I, know you as head heel for all these years.
Call me Sergio. We're good.
I know, brother, and you're so humble about that. We appreciate you so much. But our loss in this local area has been Orange County's Santa Ana Unified gain, and we appreciate you tremendously for being here and giving us spiritual healing. And again, for those of you that are on here, we will have a link, which I'm going to show you here in a bit. Tomorrow, Dr. Chavez's presentation will be on this link that you see here, and it'll be uploaded hopefully by noon tomorrow if you want to re-see it again. Today, there should be these workshops on the right-hand side of the slide. You'll see Juan Solis, who's going to be talking about the importance of fatherhood engagement. Part 2, Dr. Yvette Harris's How to Arrange a Study Area. My English Learner Student by Rosemary Hyder. Mi Estudiantes Aprendiz de Idioma Inglés, Angélica Hurtado. El Modelo Educativo para Aprendiz de Inglés en California, the California EL Roadmap, María Valencia and Laura Díaz. Introducción a las plataformas de tecnología en la educación, parte 1, Laura Díaz and María Valencia. And then the role of a liaison in connecting school staff, family, and community, Tony Hernandez. So those are today's presentations. I know, Dr. Chavez, you put your contact info in the chat.
Yes.
So for doing that as well.
So for all the participants, my email is on the chat. It's scchavez922@gmail.com. scchavez922@gmail.com. Please feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to support, because I know I see some comments here with regards to some strategies of how to get out into the community versus having the parents come to you. I'll share with you a quick story, Mars, if I may.
Yes,
So when
yes.
I first took over Fontana Middle School, one of the things that I did is I found that there was a Catholic church across the street. So I went to that priest and I asked, I told him, Father, I grew up Catholic, I'm not really practicing. I haven't been to church in a long time, but I'm the new principal. Could I please take 2 minutes out of every single mass to announce that I'm the new principal at the school, and that so they can see who I am and that they can find me on the corner every day. And he goes, sí, mijo, you can do that, but there's like 9 masses. Dije, ay Dios. So I stayed the full day. I felt really holy afterwards. It was awesome. And that is one of the strategies, just going out and reaching out to wherever the people are, the church, the swap meet, in front of Cardenas, and just putting a little table out there, just to meet and greet. That's it. Just giving out flyers with important dates. Don't engage too much, because our parents are working people. They don't have time. So we honor that. So, okay, boom, cuando necesite algo, when you need something, we're here. You do that over time. And then, yes, dar cara. We got to give cara, and we got to put it out there, right? Aide, good job. That's what we got to do. So, yeah. So I hope that helps to that one sister that put that comment, Karen. And Karen, if you're free to email me, I'll be happy to share with you a few other strategies that you can use. So I'm here to serve you.
Thank you for answering that.
And thank you so much. For me, it was an honor. For me, it was an honor. For me, this is what I live for. This is my life. So for me, it's an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Chavez. There was a question about, how do they access the workshops? And so here's a screenshot of what the website will look like. If you're on a phone, a regular phone, all you're going to see is this area to the left. And so you have to put it into what they call landscape. So that's flipping it. I don't know if I got to do it this way, but moving it. It doesn't show on my camera. I don't know. Marissa, can you help me with your phone? Because for some reason mine is, because I have the virtual backdrop. But yeah, you're going to have to go from portrait to landscape. So that's portrait. Go to landscape on your phone, and then you'll be able to see the right side, which I'm pointing here today. So if you click on September 22nd, which was yesterday, you will see not only yesterday's keynote speaker, but you'll also see all the released featured speakers of yesterday's summit. today, if you click on September 23rd, you will get today's workshops that I had just listed earlier, which are these right here. So I just want to remind you all that after this is over, that you'll be able to access that information there on the website, which looks like this. And the bit.ly link is right below, right there, the 3K, CB, WDM. It is case sensitive, so make sure if you can take a picture of that link, or if you can write it down quick enough before I flip it back to the next one. If not, I think Marisa has put it in the chat. It's there as well, so you can access it there. Lastly, for tomorrow, we have a wonderful presenter by the name of Laurel Kirchhoff, who is our digital learning specialist here at San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. And she's going to speak to us about EdTech, Handbook for Parents, the ultimate guide for parents in the digital learning age. And I know right now that's what we are all in, particularly in California right now. So we want to make sure that we come in and get some tips from her. And she's got a variety of tools and tips to help support our children through this digital learning. Lastly, we want to thank you all for attending today. It has been an honor and a pleasure to serve each one of you. Dr. Chavez, thank you. Almita, thank you for your support behind the scenes. Daniel Tamayo, I know you're in that other room that I deported you to. It's a joke when I say deported, but it's just you've been such an awesome support to our work today. And Marisa, as I close, is there anything that I have missed or need to add before we log off? You're muted, or what's going on? You're not muted. I don't know what's going on with you. Ay, Dios mío. Something happened, because see if I can make her a host. I'm going to make you host and see what it does. Unmute yourself. It's got to be something with your tech, because I've even made you the host right now. So now you have control of everything. You're going to have to end this meeting. So hopefully you can end the button down at the bottom there, Marisa. I'm going to stop sharing. And thank you again, everyone. We'll see you all tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And blessings to you all.
Thank you, Mars.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Did you need me to stay on, or we're good?
No, we're good. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day, brother.
You too.
Bye, Marisa, Alma, Dr. MacGyver.
Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Bye. And Daniel, pobrecito, he's still on the other side, no? I me lo despiden.
We sure will.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Chavez. This is Robin.
Thank you, Robin. You're awesome.
Oh man, you were awesome. So appreciate everything, and so happy you're in Santa Ana. They miss you down here though.
I know. I missed them too. It was bittersweet. Always moves are bittersweet, right?
I know, but congratulations for the
Thank
great
you.
work you're going to be doing there.
Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you for having me. Bye.